So today is International Trousers Day.
Oh, you know how to hurt me. You know how to hurt me.
Support for the Neutral Cider Pod comes from Tackle and Bait. Tackle and Bait, the technological advancements of Scotland. For you and your garlic needs.
Hello and welcome to the Neutral Cider Hotel cider podcast that is not scared of tackling the big topics of the day whilst engaging in some gratuitous jokes along the way. My name is Gabe Cook and I'm the ciderologist, and I am a global cider expert. I'm also rather lazy, which is why I have been considering over the past few weeks about shortening Neutral Cider Hotel, because it's such a task to say Neutral Cider Hotel. So I was thinking about just shortening it to NCH. But, you know, I thought that I should possibly check, first of all, whether this acronym had been already taken by anybody else. And guess what? It has. And so if we were to utilize NCH, we just might get some passing traffic and mis-Googles from people looking for NCH Europe, a global leader in wastewater treatment management, which does seem quite apt given the amount of shit that we do talk. Boom, boom. You can put a ding in there, Scott. Most interestingly, NCH also stands for the National Council of Hypnotherapy. Obviously. And so it seems entirely fitting, therefore, that, and with that click, anyone listening to my voice henceforth is compelled to purchase my book, Ciderology by Gabe Cook, every single time they hear me say, Ciderology. Ciderology. Now, hopefully that should help with a decent chunk of stock that's still left in the warehouse. Anyway, enough of my slightly morally dubious sales tactics, bringing light and joy and some giggling laughter to the affairs of my very good friends and obviously fellow denizens of the Neutral Cider Hotel, NCH, which are obviously Mr. Martin Goodwin-Sharman and Hello. Grant Hutchison. Hooray! Hello. NCH for life, people.
Oh, no, that is not cool AF.
That's the next tattoo.
That's not cool. NCH cool AF.
No,
yeah.
Oh, no.
All right,
That's
Mum.
dried me up, mate. Oh, no.
it took something as simple as that. So, how are we? Are we well? How's life? Sorry, that's quite a deep philosophical question, isn't it? Really, it's a bit heavy this early in the show. We haven't got onto spiders or anything yet, so
yet.
Oh dear, yet plenty of time for the arachnids or indeed any other invertebrate. I'm not really sure where we're going this. Let's bring it back to the world of cider, Martin. I know that you've been blending once again. You do a lot of blending, don't you? Where have you been?
Down Pilton again, and today wasn't blending, it was packaging, racking, because the Kiev, and the horse is not coming out for this. If you've heard this show, you know what it is by now. But
the horse is still asleep, don't worry, my friend.
But the Kiev from this harvest has started, so to kind of ensure that the nutrients are low and the yeast aren't that active, it's racked and filtered quickly at this stage. So today was moving a lot of intensely aromatic cider from one shed to another. Not by hand, but it was definitely fun.
Grant, tell us a little bit about what you've been up to this week. I know that as you've got more cider as part of the portfolio. Tell us about Rebel Root down in West Sussex.
Yes, yep. Rebel Root, made by Tom, who makes juice primarily, or that's what he started doing. Wobblegate, I think it's called, right?
It is,
that's right.
So he's made some cider. So it's East County style. So it's high acidity, very low tannins. There are 4 different varieties. There's still ciders, kind of in the region of a Spanish Sidra in style, and fantastic in my opinion. There's two that are the same called Outsider 2016 2017. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? And how great is it that it's being sold by another word pun based company, Restock? Yeah. So it was a marriage made in Apple heaven. But it's really interesting to be able to get, someone who's only got 4 different bottlings at the moment, for 2 of those to be the same cider from a different vintage. I recommend every time you buy one, you actually buy them both.
Of course you would. You're selling them.
Well, yeah, Martin, I was hoping for people to think that I was talking not as a salesman there, but as an enthusiast only. And I genuinely think it's a really interesting way to kind of expand your cider knowledge and experience by going straight in there with 2 from different years, especially because they've gone through malolactic fermentation as well, which again, the horse has been out many times for that, so go back and listen if you want to know what that is. So yeah, there 4 of them are super interesting, very exciting, and available in most good Scottish cider shops and on Scrattings as well, of course.
What are the vintages of the 2 different ones? Do you know?
16 and 17.
I think I've had the 17. But I've definitely had one. I just can't. I don't know why I asked. I don't know the date.
What are the dates? I can't remember what they are. Very good, thank you. Bye.
Well, there are only, I think the bottles they're all numbered up to 1,000. So they're pretty small batch. Well, in the grand scheme of things, and there's lots of people that make smaller batch than that. But yeah, so that's been added, and some little Pomona releases as well. Strangely for them, 5 at a time.
Yeah, go big or go home.
Yeah, so you can find all of them in normal places as well. I'm not going to go through each one of those, but they're all very interesting.
Just to give people at home that don't make cider a kind of insight, usually this period now is just an onslaught of harvesting, pressing apples. So the fact that it's been like 5 releases all in one go, not only is it odd to have 5 in one go anyway, but at this time it's just like, what the fuck now?
Yeah, I know. Well, and also we'll maybe mention one that I think is particularly interesting.
Yeah.
The Disco Nouveau, because it's a cider that's been made from this year's harvest. Which is pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I guess it's in homage to Beaujolais Nouveau, the wine. What style would you say? I don't know. That's pressed, fermented, pressed in August, released on the 3rd Thursday in November. Every year, and there's always a big scramble with wine geeks to get hold of them, and James and Susanna did that with cider, so I think we're going to be tasting it on a future episode, so
we will. Yeah,
we're looking forward to that.
Got mine downstairs already. Also, Outsider 2016 is the one I've had. I just checked in that little bit.
Oh, there you go.
Is it? All right,
thanks for being accurate, Martin. We like that.
There you go.
I've been doing some research for my new book coming in 2021, Modern British Cider, the follow-up to Ciderology. Buy it now by Gabe Cook. Remember the hypnotherapy.
You're back in the room.
And so part of that research was around titles and named and descriptors, and I came across something quite interesting. which was an article written by an IP lawyer, actually in South Africa, who's come across an example of sort of trade descriptions and trademarking within cider, and is citing Thatcher's Katie as an example.
Yes.
So if we say, for example, the example with wine is that winemakers are not allowed to trademark, Pinot Noir or Chardonnay or Sauvignon Blanc, because it is a description of the product. It's a description of the goods. Mm-hmm. And that should be allowed and open for anybody to utilize.
I tried trademarking bread and it didn't work.
It's funny that, isn't it? That you couldn't find it so supremely unique for you to have bread. I want bread. Funny.
To name your cider, or
no, just I wanted.
I mean, it would stand out.
It's a bit yeasty. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought I'd rig the system and get some cash every time someone made bread, but apparently you can't. So,
damn it. Coming back to my story, Martin, hijacker.
Back to my actual story. It's related to cider.
The article, because Thatchers have a trademark on their brand Katie, and they've had the trademark on that for a number of years, and it's an exploration as to whether they are entitled to do so. They have the trademark, and so anybody currently who produces a cider that's called Katie, Thatchers are legally entitled to challenge that. The question is whether they should have been given the trademark in the first place. Apparently, in order for a trademark to be achieved, there needs to be something distinctive and differentiated from other people's products, and should not be solely descriptive of the goods. And so if the cider is made from Katie apples and the cider maker wants to call it Katie, then really they should be allowed to do so, because it's a description of the goods rather than the brand name. But Thatchers do hold the brand. And it's something that's important to ensure that doesn't happen, I think, for other varieties like Dabinet or Yarlington Mill, because they should be, for everybody to utilize.
Yeah, I think that's pretty unfair that Thatchers have this copyright on an apple variety.
Well, it's not that they've got it on the apple variety. It's the product, and therein lies the challenge, is that you really, technically, you shouldn't be able to have a trademark that is a term that is the descriptor, in this case, the apple variety that goes into it. So, yeah.
Well, Gabe, no need to hypnotize him, because every listener's fucking asleep. So, Grant, one more thing. What have you been up to? Where's the what cool thing did you do?
I did something I spoke about on a previous episode before it happened, but the Salford Beer Festival, the Independent Salford Beer Festival, which this year was virtual, was online. They did had a cider tasting that I curated and hosted. Well, I hadn't hosted it. There was the wonderful Charlie Hooson Sykes, who's the Lady Sybil on social media, hosted it. I paired some ciders with some music, had a jolly good fun time tasting and listening to some tunes. The if anyone is interested, the playlist is on Spotify, and all the ciders are available. All good cider shops for you to buy if you want to drink along or just listen to it. I think it's called Salford Beer Festival. Probably put it in the show notes or something like that.
Just more work for me.
I know. But the best thing about this beer festival was that it was a fundraiser for a mental health charity, a local mental health charity in Salford called Start Inspiring Minds, and they raised £7,000.
Yes,
boy,
awesome. Well done.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Well done to everybody.
I just wanted to say congrats to Jim, who organised it, and as always, thanks to Kath and Dick for their support of me and for putting me forward to do it and helping facilitate it and organise it. So yeah, and well done, Jim. It was a great thing to be part of, and and we had some really cracking ciders and some lovely music.
I'll tell you what, that's not only impressive as a total, it's impressive in the face of all of this, like lockdown and everything. Yeah. Like to do that online is fucking insane. Yeah. So just from hearing that number, that's like, fuck, well done, guys.
Yeah, I mean, he did right. You can, if you go onto their website, salfordbeerfest.com/news, Jim's kind of written a little post about it called "Washing Up and Moving Forward," and sort of mentions times where he doubted his sanity in taking on such a thing, and the logistics were a nightmare. And but yeah, it was great. It went really well, and it was a great thing to be part of. And just some lovely people, and nice to share some drinks with some people and listen to some music and feel like you were somewhat closer to socializing again in a normal way. So yeah, well done to everyone involved. It was awesome.
And well, good on you for getting involved too, my friend. Excellent. Well, there we go. Nice to finish on a slightly positive note rather than doom and gloom, which is never a good thing. So, thank you very much.
I was just going to say, come on, Martin, give us something.
I'll actually sort of unveil some smoke and mirrors. But I spoke to my dad just before we started recording, guys, and I was saying, I'm cooking dinner. I've got to rush to this podcast. And he went, there was one released yesterday. I was like, yeah, they're actually recorded in advance. But he was jokingly like, is it not live?
Oh, bless.
And he said, I said, yeah, no. And he was like, I'm just up to the bit where Fred Durst messaged you. So that isn't real. And I was like, well, yes, it is. It's like, what? And it was I was like, I think that was like hyperbole. Like, I made up a story. And he was like, oh no, I thought it was just like riffing. I was like, what a specific, like, I was like, no, Dad, Fred Durst really messaged me. And he also said, can you not swear as much in the podcast?
So. Well, dare I say, on that bombshell, it's time to move on to this week's news. Okay, now here at Neutral Cider Hotel, it's time to have a review of the hard-hitting news stories of the week. Let's see what we've got.
There's no news. No news. Yeah, there's no news. No news. No, there's no news. You're going to use them all, aren't you, Scott?
I might just use them all. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm just going to use them all.
Oh my God. I haven't laughed that much since Martin did the cock and ball story. That was
unbelievable.
So there we go. That was this week's hard-hitting news. It's now time to go on to our interview. Let's see who we're chatting with this week. So now here at the Neutral Cider Hotel, we're on to the interview. And this week, it's a fun one. A background in selling big brews and with an entrepreneurial spirit led Simon Wright to establish Hawks in East London back in 2013. With the mission then, and still now, to utilize unwanted, donated apples and to showcase a different kind of cider ethos to its rural contemporaries, Hawks has always had a slightly modern and feather-ruffling attitude, it would be fair to say. But purchased by Brewdog in 2018, and now with Simon exploring pastures new opportunities, Hawks enters a new phase, one headed up by tonight's guest. With 8 years of climbing the ranks at Brewdog and previously overseeing its global marketing, crowdfunding, and community growth, she now has the opportunity to spearhead one of the key cider makers in these incredibly challenging but equally exciting times. Ladies and gents, welcome Sarah Warman.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Sarah, welcome to the Neutral Cider Hotel, and also welcome to the wonderful world of cider. It's fair to say that you're a bit of a noob, aren't you? This is I
am 100% noob.
Haven't spent so much time in cider yet, and this is, I think, quite an interesting insight and opportunity for the likes of myself to learn and understand someone such as yourself from a progressive beer background. What are some of the interesting and immediate sort of differences that you're starting to notice between beer and cider?
Great question. It's a really interesting thing to come into, actually, because I think a lot of people on the outside might think, actually, craft beer, craft cider, maybe you can kind of just pull a lot of audience from one across to the other, but I really don't see it that way. I think it's a lot more complicated than that. So I think in terms of audience, I think the cider drinker can come from a wide variety of different places. And, obviously there's an incredible following for cider in the UK already and beyond, overseas as well. But then, we're located on the Bermondsey Beer Mile, so we very much appreciate that beer drinkers do have a tendency to want to try different things. So we do have a lot of opportunity to introduce ourselves to lots of beer drinkers down there. But likewise, there'll be lots of folks who come from spirits and come from wine, and they want to try something else. And cider can really offer that. It's super diverse in terms of the palates that it can sort of entertain. So from an audience perspective, I think there's an incredible opportunity there to just kind of reach out to lots of different people. And I get told off for using the word, but I feel like Hawks is a bit of an infiltrator in the beer mile at the moment. So kind of just like set up with our apples, and we're like, hey guys, you like beer, you might like this stuff too. But I think there's an opportunity to kind of do that into sort of other verticals within drinks as well. And then in terms of the actual product itself, I'm not going to school everyone on the difference between apples and hops. But obviously there's a huge difference between how the two products are made, but equally they have a lot of sort of similarities in terms of the complexity and the opportunity for kind of building on a really very, very old heritage in terms of the history of beer, the history of cider, how it's been produced traditionally for millennia. And now there's an opportunity for sort of a wide range of breweries and cideries to kind of take their new spin on the sort of the classics. So I think that's what Hawks really excels at, is really taking that kind of traditional base and doing something fun and new with it, and kind of seeing how many new people we can kind of bring into the world of cider.
Awesome. You've got a pretty fantastic team already sort of bedded in down there on Druid Street, the likes of Theo and Max and Rad and Co. There's already been a track record of some creative, fun, bold, pioneering different ciders, whether that be just straight up apple with the influence of utilization of barrel, or with, dare I say, other flavors, which to some of the traditionalists might be seen as a touch heresy. Luckily, you're in the company of progressive and enlightened people here. Well, just about
heresy.
The neutral
We
side.
can't call ourselves enlightened.
Can we not? Why not? Why can't we call us?
That's not cool AF at all, mate.
That's not cool AF. Well, you can RRUNNOFT. Anyway, that was from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which I watched the other week. Anyway, slightly spurious link.
Niche.
Yeah, niche. Thank you.
Most of Gabe's things are.
Yes,
including the book.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Ciderology by Gabe Cook. Now, Grant and Martin, you're both laughing at me, but I know for a fact that Sarah has a copy of Ciderology by Gabe Cook.
I do.
Yeah.
Is it signed, Sarah?
It is, but not to me.
Even better.
I've got a hand-me-down.
Nothing better than a hand-me-down. Sarah, I would be very happy to provide you with your own copy of Ciderology by Gabe Cook. Don't worry, you can get
or
that.
Scribble out whoever's name it is.
Yeah, I quite like the word you use, infiltrator, because it kind of in many ways that's. I kind of get the feeling that's where cider's position, or the point that cider has to come from. Let's say from a pub perspective, and Martin is definitely the person to speak more about pubs here, but just trying to get cider into pubs is a really, really challenging thing. Even into free houses, just to trying to put forward the proposal and the opportunity that cider isn't just a singular thing, but it is a drink like beer, of which there are multiple different interpretations and styles and so many intricacies that I think that kind of infiltrator, I think that plays for sort of cider across the board. What's kind of Brewdog's aspiration for Hawks? What are the opportunities? What's the reaching for the sky kind of thing that it has the potential here?
I think we just really want to grow cider. So I think the more that we can do, like Hawks is in a unique position whereby we're placed in London, so we have the ability to reach a lot of people very, very quickly. So we kind of we have an obligation to kind of utilize that position to really explode the category as much as we can possibly achieve, because obviously the majority of the incredible cideries across the country are located in quite difficult to reach areas, so they're not as easy to get to. And the more that we can expose a lot of that industry through our tap room on Druid Street, and also the Brewdog bars, of which we now have 150 worldwide.
No way. Wow.
I know. It's a bit mad. Is it 150? It's about 100. Yeah, it's about 150. It's mad. It's a lot of bars. We're about to open our new bar in Shanghai as well, just after a pandemic, which I don't think anyone was expecting. But we also launched a huge new on-site tap from our brewery in Aberdeen throughout lockdown as well, and it's been absolutely killing it. So yeah, there's still massive opportunity for the on-trade there in parts, but it's an exceedingly difficult time at the moment. But going back to your question, in terms of sort of our aspirations, growing the category, doing what we can to sort of open eyes to the sort of the wide world of cider is absolutely what we're about, and taking those innovative spins that some might see as blasphemous, but that's absolutely what we stand for, doing something a bit different, just getting people angry as well as getting them excited is absolutely the way we're going to play it. So that's our vibe. That's what we're striving for. More people drinking cider, more taps of cider. Yeah, they're my goals.
Do you see a point in the off trade on retail side in supermarkets where cider shelves can reach the point that craft beer shelves are at just now, where they're alongside Carling and Stella and Foster's is cans of independent brewers beers? Do you think cider can get there as well?
I don't see why not. I think it's going to be a long journey. I don't think it's something that can happen overnight. And I do think that it starts with the change in perception. So I don't necessarily think it's something that will start with the retailers. We've got to change the mindset, because otherwise there just won't be that draw from people. And I think, much like beer had this kind of, drink 10 pints of lager, tick Saturday night off your to-do list. That's what it used to be. And it's taken a long time for beer to get away from that. But look where it is now. And with cider, I think, like you were saying before, like there tends to be an apple tap and maybe a second tap. Like that's kind of how the on-trade works at the moment. And the more that we can do to kind of encourage venues to kind of expand on that, we're taking quite a sort of a slightly slowly approach, whereby we're kind of reducing down our core range a little bit to then expand out the NPD a little bit more, so that we can really focus on, right, these are our core products. It's an apple cider and then 2 flavored ciders. Give these a whirl. Nothing too kind of like mind bending, but then our NPD will absolutely be much more sort of complex and running throughout the year with much more kind of crazy, insane stuff, so that if you do come across Hawks, then you've got that opportunity to kind of explore a little bit further. And we hosted Cider Arbor last year, which was our cider festival, and we're looking at obviously it didn't go ahead this year, but we're looking at the opportunity to sort of revive that in 2021, and kind of just create that sort of platform to engage people with the wide world of cider in a cool way that just encourages people to explore and find out a bit more, and just open their minds to what's out there, and how far you can take cider, and that it's not just Strongbow, it's not just Snakebite. There's more to it than that, and I think there's a great opportunity to kind of unopen that world to everyone.
Definitely, yeah.
The Ciderama, I was at the event in 2019. Gosh, that seems just the longest time ago. And you're absolutely right. The element of that well, there were two elements that I really enjoyed. One was the fact that there were so many international cider makers, and it was sort of a reaching hand out to, especially to the USA. It's such a fitting kind of like compatriot, I'm trying to find the right word, to bring over, because the way that the USA approaches cider is in a modern and a contemporary way, and less burdened with kind of heritage and tradition, which plays into the second bit, was that it was presented in a modern, urban, contemporary way, which is obviously what Hawke's, the attitude and the ethos, is all about. But I'm currently researching my second book, Modern British Cider, the follow-up to Ciderology by me.
I'd not heard about that.
Why not? Yeah, have you not? It's a riveting read, especially if you get your own signed copy, Sarah, in the post in the morning. And I say I'm doing lots of research and lots of conversations right now, and something that is coming up is around if cider, because the data shows that that less than 50% of the UK population ever drink cider. The majority of people in this country will never purchase a cider currently. And I'm trying to sort of tease apart and understand exactly what's kind of going on there. But I do have the feeling that part of that is because cider is viewed, and it's all about viewpoint and perception, as being something that is old-fashioned or rural or traditional, or doesn't relate to a younger urban consumer. And so ciders, in terms of, the liquid is just part of it. So maybe not being quite so deeply phenolic or kind of funky, and maybe being a bit more fresh or clean, possibly for a part of the population, but also about the way that the product is presented and the way that it communicates as being to this kind of consumer. Is this something that you think is kind of true, and something that is going to be, a continuing drive of your activity?
No need to buy the book anymore. That's all the audio book there.
That's the introduction done.
Chapter 2, yeah. Sorry, Sarah, I cut you off, but fuck off. Jesus Christ.
Just transcribe it, it's fine. I'll write my own before you get there.
Yeah, well, yeah, just listen to Neutral Cider Hotel enough, and I will have actually verbatim read out the old book and the new. You're probably right, actually.
I'll answer the question.
Please do, for the love of God.
I think you're absolutely right. So I think, liquid we've definitely sort of covered. I think, 100% we do need to make sure that it's accessible, and the insane, quite offensively scary tannic stuff can be quite off-putting if that's your first sort of foray into cider, but very few people are going to come across that as their first sort of entry-level cider. So I'm hoping that's not really putting people off at the moment, but I do think, I'm a Kentish girl, so, I grew up with the ciders from that part of the country, which are probably a little bit more palate-friendly, generally speaking, which is why I ended up massively regretting that time I drank 3 pints of Biddenden cider, which was about 8.6% when I was 18. But that was many moons ago. Fucking
hell, mate.
And now I'm much more into, drinking carefully and enjoying what I'm enjoying. So I think definitely with the packaging as well, I think you're onto something there. So we're currently looking at the whole sort of Hawke's brand identity, and I think we've kind of probably over the years fallen into a bit of a trap of trying to look like craft beer but in cider, to try and kind of like fill that gap. So we're just trying to sort of refresh that a little bit at the moment and give it a bit of a new lease of life that is much more contemporary, much more stands out against both cider and beer, and kind of like just holds its own just as something that is quite cool looking, but also it resonates as a drink. So that's definitely something we're looking at the moment. And I think, there are some really cool, interesting sort of packaging designs out there in cider, but it could probably do with lightening up a little bit in some areas. So I think, there's definitely space for new producers to come in and do their own spin on both liquid and packaging. So yeah, it's everything to play for as far as I'm concerned.
Nice.
The packaging that I loved was I got a bottle. Theo actually sent it to me of the baby shambles.
Yeah, that was banging.
Well, I commented on it. He posted it. I was like, mate, what the fucking yes. That's what cider should look like, kind of thing. And he sent it to me, and I honestly adored it. And I posted it, and I think, to be blunt, I brought up the kind of Brewdog link with Hawks because for a lot of beer people, it's an odd one because cider's intrinsically for a lot of people, it's small artisanal makers doing a small thing, and they're usually one-man bands. And from the looks of it, it's almost like a big multinational, massive company like Brewdog has bought into this cidery. Like, how would you talk to people that don't necessarily like Brewdog, but you want them to drink Hawks?
So I think it's really interesting because I think a lot of people who will come across Hawks and could be interested in Hawks will not give a shit about Brewdog. They probably like half of them haven't even heard of Brewdog. Most of them probably don't even drink beer. So it's really not, it's just a non-issue to them. Like, it's just not something that's relevant to them. So for those people, it's just, it doesn't matter. And it's not something that, ultimately it means that they can find cider where they live. So it's not really an issue. I think for the people who don't like Brewdog, I'm not really sure what to say about them. Like, there's always going to be that audience of people who aren't sort of super keen on Brewdog because it is a polarizing brand and a business. But I think, ultimately, like, we're not going to be starting to kind of be like, defending the fact that we've bought Hawks as a business, because that's not really the point of it. The whole point of it was because we recognized that we could do cool stuff in other beverage verticals, such as distilling. So we opened a distillery within our own brewery up in Aberdeen. So we have Brewdog Distilling Company, but we tried making our own cider and we weren't very good at it. So ultimately we ended up, it's true. So we spoke to Simon, met Simon, and, he was like, you guys can take Hawks where I want it to go. So it was kind of just like a partnership that really worked for both parties. It enables Hawks to have that kind of scalability that it really didn't have on its own.
Yeah.
That it really needs as well in terms of what its sort of ambitions were at the time. And those have definitely kind of lived on in terms of the brand and where we want to take it. But it also means that Brewdog can still get involved in more stuff that it naturally didn't have that capacity to be good at. So we've all learned over the past couple of years in terms of having cider within our business. And, Gabe's kind of been involved in that. And helping to sort of support our teams just learning a bit more about cider and being more advocates when you're behind the Brewdog bar, like actually talking to people about cider in a much more enlightening way, which we probably didn't have before. Yeah. So, we're doing a fantastic job of involving more people in the cider fold by having them in the Brewdog fold in the first place. So, to the guys who don't like Brewdog, we're probably not going to change their minds. So there's probably not too much sleep we're going to lose over that. To the rest of everyone else, there's a lot of opportunity to kind of encourage more people to kind of join both cider and craft beer from both sides. So yeah, I just think it's a great opportunity on both sides, really.
I mean, Martin, you sort of said yourself that with the baby shambles, you kind of approached it, but you sort of,
you didn't want to like it, did you?
Yeah, that's it. And I feel like maybe with cider, I think there's, even if someone felt that way and they drank it and it was good, they'd go, well, shit, that's good. Does it matter? Yeah. And I think for me, looking at the model, the way it's set up, I sort of compare it to the Angry Orchard situation in New York, which they've got their urban orchard release, whatever, I can't remember what it's called, but the bottle that goes everywhere, that's in all the taps in the bar rooms, the bars, and it allows Ryan, the part of the Walden project, to do more interesting things like single varieties and do collaborations with Tom Oliver and things like that. And I think for me, as long as that side of Hawks is still there, and I think you said earlier that that's still part of the plan, really reduce your core range, but hopefully you're still going to have these interesting releases.
Tons of them, yeah. We've got a long list. Yeah, we've got a long list that we were sort of mapping out today in terms of just creating the jigsaw that is the calendar of our NPD and sort of small batch stuff. So we're going through that tomorrow, and then we've got quite a lot of single varieties to come out next year, which is really exciting. And hopefully we can use that not only as an opportunity to just create some great cider, but also a great educational piece as well. So you can definitely liken that to kind of like the single hop varieties that you get released in beer that do a great job of kind of just getting people to think about how those different ingredients can actually really influence the outcome of a product. So yeah, some cool single varieties, and then lots of other cool blends that we've got coming up that could be quite different and maybe challenging in some ways. And then also, we've got our barrel project, so the Bermondsey barrels. We're barrel aging a bunch of stuff at the moment. We've got one coming out in the next few weeks, which could be quite a cool kind of Christmas gift for someone who you might know who maybe is into their drinks, but maybe you're just at a loss as to what to buy them because you've already bought them a bottle of Eagle Rare and something funky from, I don't know, Cantillon or whatever. So it gives you something else there. And we've also got a really cool thing that we're working on at the moment, which is a couple of ciders aged on grape skins from Renegade Winery in East London. So also focusing on those kind of urban producers and kind of just the melding of minds and how we can take a waste product from them and do something cool with it. So we've got a Chardonnay and a Nero de Troyes grape skin aged ciders. So currently kind of figuring out how to kind of package them in a cool way and get people to like sort of pick those up and try something a bit different as well. So yeah, absolutely trying lots of weird and funky stuff, some that might be a little bit more cerebral and quite kind of challenging on the palate, and then some stuff that might just be a little bit more kind of just fun and interesting and easy to get to grips with, but definitely has kind of a value in terms of that educational piece or just entertainment.
With the wine collab, my advice for packaging is don't handwrite a poem and put it on the label. But going back to the...
Are you speaking from experience?
Yes, very much.
Okay.
But going back to the single variety, I had a Discovery single variety from you guys the other day, and it was fucking banging. I think you guys are in a good position with the link to beer, and especially in the beer market, ignoring the Brewdog link, but the position of your tap room in the single varieties. And we've discussed it on here. The language in cider is still quite a loss to be cohesive for the whole thing, even for people in the know. But if you guys have got a kind of good leg up in it, if you can kind of present those to people that are used to, like you say, a single hop Citra, like learning about hops from that, you've got a good advantage of teaching people about the benefits of those. But naturally with single varieties, you're kind of beholden to what grows around you usually. But are you guys bringing in from different regions, or is it like, oh cool, any specifics?
It's all over really. So we've got some stuff down in Somerset, we've got a few in Hereford, we've got some stuff coming from Kent as well, and then obviously with the Apple Donors project, we create stuff that is an amalgamation of a broad variety of different things. But they also offer us a great opportunity for us to, they're not single varietals, but we are looking at creating a kind of a vertical tasting of different apple donor. So just in terms of the apple donors, just for any of your listeners, we encourage people to send us their unloved apples once a year, and then we make it into a cider basically. So we take apples from urban orchards across the UK, from people's gardens, from streets, wherever. You send them to us and we send you cider as a thank you. And then we produce cider off the back of that. So we're looking at producing, historically it's been This Is London cider, which is the product that we make. But now we're looking at doing maybe like, this is Bristol, this is Manchester, this is Leeds, like if we can find, because obviously we can track where everyone sent us the apples from. So we're just figuring out the volumes at the moment to kind of section out the country and create those varietals that are specific to regions across the UK, which doesn't necessarily focus specifically on an apple, but may help us kind of talk about terroir and how that does influence kind of the different flavors that you might get in those different apples. We might make them all and they might all taste the same. I think that's highly unlikely. So it's a great opportunity for us to, just talk about something different again.
If only there were bars in those regions that you could
if
sell.
Only, imagine what an opportunity that would be.
Will we maybe see Hawks tap rooms appearing elsewhere?
I'd
or
love
are we
to
just,
do that.
is it just all going to go through Brewdogs?
No, it's obviously through we have distribution through all Brewdog bars at the moment. So all of those venues will all have Hawks on tap and packaged where applicable. But in terms of tap rooms, not something that I think I'm going to be able to justify the spend and an investment in right now. Not top of my list, but I've definitely been kind of like keeping an eye on what are the key areas across the UK and also internationally where there might be an opportunity to kind of make our mark with something that is really focused on cider. But I think we have to dial in what we do at the tap room first to use that as a blueprint. So first step will just be to absolutely make that the destination for cider in London, which it probably is at the moment anyway, but just really sort of amplifying that and making it an incredible experience where you can take the tours and really immerse yourself in cider, and we can represent UK cider as well. So it's not just about us, it's about, where we've come from, what we've learned, and also where we think we're going as well.
I think you nailed a really important thing there, which is that the Hawks tap room on Drury Street is the cider. It's the place to go and chase a range of more contemporary kind of ciders, but also it's the cider venue. So many things have happened there. It's always been such a welcoming space that's hosted, dare I say, book launches such as Ciderology by Gabe Cook. Full Juice.
I thought you were going to say Susanna Forbes' Cider and Cider, which was a great book launch I went to there.
And Susanna Forbes' fantastic Cider and Cider, the another cider book that came out in 2018 as well. Actually, was it 2019? Anyway, another great cider book that came out
We'll
recently.
have a different ding for that one then, Scott.
Yeah. And this is, so this part of the fairly collaborative cider is small. I know that the beer community is fairly small and cohesive. Cider is even smaller, as I suspect you're starting to find out fairly rapidly, that everyone kind of like knows each other and it kind of is what it is. And what Hawks has been fantastic at doing is knowing and understanding that it's got this unique position of where it is in London, and to be able to facilitate and host these different sort of events and activities. And I suppose it's a case, I don't suppose that once we get back to a time when we can do these things, that hopefully that's not going to change, and you're still going to be keen to, promote the, Go Team
books coming out, yes.
And just sort of, all contributing towards cider's kind of cause. Because, it really does feel that we've talked about this individually and on the show here, that cider, from a slightly UK perspective, US or our lovely US listeners, it's slightly different with you guys. But for the UK, it's a slightly slower burn, and we're starting to build to really quite an interesting point where it could kick off a little bit, and it's all relative compared to beer. But in terms of
that's the most British thing to hear if they're an American. It could kick off a little bit.
Yeah. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Come on. Let's not go too crazy. Let's be calm, measured about.
We might spill a little bit of cider.
Oh my God, it's happening.
Can you feel a mild increase in the temperature? The British way is that there's a slight something is happening, and it just seems like a really, really exciting time. And so, from everything that you're kind of describing in terms of your individual, approach to what the opportunity with Hawks is and what the plans are, it just seems really exciting to me. And hopefully, that everyone sort of getting together and pushing just to get cider viewed and consumed as the fantastic drink that we all know it can be.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. I think one thing to be wary of is just beware of the bubble. So I think definitely in beer and probably in cider too, you do have to be very conscious that there are people who kind of live their entire lives in these sort of drinks bubbles, and they don't necessarily always see outside of that. So I think, and I like how Martin's leaning away from the mic, like, I'm not part of that.
I'm in all the bubbles.
So there's certain people who I do have to temporarily mute on Twitter, just because I just can't stand to hear kind of like negative infighting that you do get within these industries. But it's like the same with anything. Like you end up in a bit of an echo chamber if you only listen to the people who think the same as you the whole time. So if we're going to grow cider, we really do have to kind of encourage people from outside of the existing bubble to come into it, because otherwise it's just going to stagnate. So making it accessible and making it something that people can get into because it is welcoming and it is inclusive and it is representative is really important. And I think, again, Hawks has a responsibility there because we do live in a very diverse part of the country. So to not represent that would be what we would be neglecting where we come from, really. So I think there's a lot of work that we have to do there.
The bubble in beer is also like it's a weird one in that like I used to run a bottle shop, and we used to talk about like chasing the hype beers, and it would always be like, what's on Instagram? Like you'd queue up on lists and all this and try to find out who was drinking what. And you realize after about a month of doing it that a photo that's like, you need this beer immediately. You buy a case and that's 24 single servings of it. But always, and maybe if they've already bought it somewhere else, it's one that they don't want again. Whereas like Coors, literally like Neck Oil and Pale Fire and Colonel Table Beer, you could sell for fucking days and you'd never see it on social because people are like, well, that's what I always drink. And I think cider seems like an odd one for that as well, because there's definitely a lot of that, but also... people like I've drank a few bottles of the Little Pomona table cider, but I just haven't posted it again. And I think a lot of people think this year, especially, that's starting to happen in cider, where it's like there's FOMO finally, and it's like, well, kind of maybe, but also it's actually not actually moving that fast.
Exactly. Yeah, I think for the people who work in the industry, you have to just remain super conscious of that, because otherwise you'll fall victim to that. And if you just continually try to push out new stuff all the time, you'll never create any traction, because there's nothing for anyone to come back to you for except for new stuff, and you can't make consistently outstanding products again and again and again without having something kind of consistent to really sort of support that. So I think from a commercial standpoint, you do really have to be aware of that and make sure that you are producing amazing flagship products that people do want to come back for, and not necessarily watch Instagram for the posts every time you release a new batch, because it just won't happen. But, you know, creating that hype when you've got fun stuff that actually creates that conversation, and then use that as that springboard to kind of get that regular kind of engagement from your flagship products. I think that's definitely where, you know, most producers will be kind of approaching things. And if they're not, then that's definitely where I would suggest people sort of consider revisiting their strategy.
Speaking of hype, fun stuff, cool stuff, good shit, what ciders do you love or have loved drinking? Like, if you can name, say, 2 or 3 that you're like, these are ones that I would recommend to our listeners. So
I had Elliot from Hawks gave me a can of Original Sin Black Widow, and I was drinking that on I was drinking that on Friday last week, and it was absolutely banging. And I think that was one of the ones that's really kind of just got me really excited recently about amazing cider. I think also I'll have to say Turner's, just because they're in Kent. So I think just their cider is great.
Russet, 8%.
Exactly, yeah. Like the strong ones from Kent, that's where I'd go. And then I think, you know, Biddenden definitely has its place in my heart, as much as it, you know, did me one when I was 18. Like I've learned how you drink a cider like that, and it's much more subtle. So I come from a place in Kent called Cranbrook, and Cranbrook has an annual apple festival on the 21st of October on Apple Day, and it's I've always thought it's just a bizarre kind of thing, but now I'm really coming to kind of like realize what the value of it is. But it has themes like, I don't know, Vikings and aliens, or hippies and whatever, like cowboys, like really bizarre kind of combos.
That's very cider. Or actually, no, maybe that's just more bucolic Kent. I'm not sure. Maybe more Kent.
It's Kent. I'll just let Kent take the rap for that one. It's bizarre, but now I'm kind of coming to kind of become quite kind of protective and adoring of that. So I'm very excited about my cider journey. You know, I am a beer girl by trade. And I'm definitely sort of really excited about the new challenge of kind of immersing myself in cider and reading Gabe's books.
Well, that's a great start, and very happy to provide some training down the line. Another gratuitous plug. Thank you very much. Sarah, we're just about to run out of time. I was going to ask the question that Martin did, so that's kind of scuppered me slightly there. So I'll ask you something slightly different in terms of you've been down at the cidery for the last few weeks, and these different apples that have come in. Are there any particular apple varieties that you have taken a little bit of a fancy to, possibly?
There was one actually, which I'm just going to sound like I'm completely biased now, but we had the first day that I worked in the cidery. Actually, I was working on the press, so just getting a little bit more of experience of actually making cider. We were pressing Kentish Kiss.
Ooh.
And I just thought it was an absolutely beautiful apple, and I just really thought it was delicious to eat. But in terms of the actual cider itself, and in terms of the final product, I'm a big fan of the Braeburn. So personally speaking, those are some of my faves at the moment.
Braeburn's an interesting one because I lived in New Zealand for a few years. Yeah, well, I don't like to eat apples. I know there is a slight weird juxtaposition there of like being a cider expert and not actually eating apples for fun.
It's all smoke and mirrors.
It's all smoke. Well, of course it is. You know me. And so when I lived in New Zealand, I made cider, and I tried to make cider by Braeburn, and I wasn't very good at it. And what compounded that feeling of being a slight failure there was the fact that Roberta, who was cider maker at Hawks previously, demonstrated that with clever and very, very actual technical great cider making skill, ingenuity, and utilization of specific kind of yeasts could make a really, really amazing cider. The Sole Trader, which I think kind of Hawks is like sort of signature cider, really, that amazing, aromatic. Anybody who's into a Pinot Gris or Gewürztraminer, that kind of thing, that's the kind of cider for you. So good shout on the Braeburn. It's not an easy one to make, but if you've got the skill, there we go. So Sarah, thank you very much for joining us here at the Neutral Cider Hotel. We hope you've had a jolly good time and that the service was up to the requisite standard.
Top notch.
Well, would you do us a little TripAdvisor to say that we were indeed top notch?
Yes.
That'd be greatly appreciated.
4 stars, beautiful drapes, lovely carpet. The bar needs more Hawks.
Apple perfume in the air. So potpourri. Sarah, thank you so much. All the best to you, and good luck to you and the team down at Hawks. So they're finishing off the cider making, and I, for one, am really excited to see what comes out of your place in 2021, and looking forward to visiting the tap room when life gets a little bit easier.
Definitely.
So, cheers to you, my friends. Take it easy.
Thank you so much. See you all soon.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Also, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about the cider making and also how to get the ciders, do check out www.wearehawks.com, and it's at wearehawks on the socials. So every week here at the Neutral Cider Hotel, we undertake a tasting of a particular product and give our thoughts and opinions, the pros and the cons. But this week we're doing something slightly different. Martin, what are we going to be doing?
Well, first off, I want to say, Scott, I want this to have loads of echo, delay, or anything on it. But this game is called
Supermarket Sweep.
Um,
I didn't know you were going to do that. That's brilliant.
So basically, we spend a lot of time and a lot of the majority of this show talking about artisanal craft fine ciders, sort of the higher end of it. And a question that comes up quite often in circles that I'm in, as well as online here, is like, what's the difference between a standard cider and the ciders you're talking about? And I just kind of wanted to play with that today and say, like, cider's accessibility is key. But unlike beer, which is recipe led, the jump off from small cidery using full juice to mass market drinks makes it almost like a cliff edge. So just shall we see if we are snobs or if the regular stuff is up to snuff, and just get to it. Try some of the supermarket stuff that's available for everyone to buy.
Bang in.
Yes, we should.
And I will also add, support local and shop small if you can. But if you are on a budget, the world's going to shit. Don't judge other people for things that are out of their control. And let's just see if these are good enough. We've gone through the supermarket, picked some stuff that we're going to try. And if it's good enough, you'll fucking know about it.
And also, it's something that might lead you on to the finer, more craft, more artisanal stuff as well. There's no point in us suggesting to everyone that they go straight in for something that might be too challenging straight away. We've tried to kind of pick some supermarket ciders that. Well, let's see. Let's see what we think.
Yeah. Not everyone's going to come when they drink the Ridder straight away, but
I hope not.
But hopefully, guys, we make you come drinking some of these. So, Cider 1, fitting. It's Hawks. It's the Urban Orchard.
Here we go. This is this is their sort of flagship brand, isn't it? This is the first brand that they sort of launched with, and given their location southeast of England, and this is the cider that I think maybe still does, or certainly did at the start, utilize the sort of the donated apple proportion. It's supposed to be more acid driven. It's not a West Country style cider. It is a bit more fresh and acid driven. It's been a little while since I tasted it. What do you think, chaps?
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say a bit more about it, saying it's 4.5%, so definitely smashable. Braeburn, Bramley, Gala, and Pink Lady are the varieties. So I don't know why I needed to say it first. I was just reading.
No, but I think I was going to say the same. How I think it's really great that they've got all this information on the can.
For sure, absolutely.
They've got body, texture, finish, varieties, target SG. So are we horsing around, Gabe?
Yeah, are we horsing around? Yeah, thanks, Martin. It's no imitation. There she blows.
Nah.
Target specific gravity, SG. Interesting. I think what they're after specific gravity in this context, I think, is going to mean what is the final quantity of sugar that's in there. Specific gravity being a proxy for the what is a measure of the density of the liquid, and that most of that density does come from sugar. So what is the target SG?
It's 1.011.
1.011. That's definitely medium of sweetness. That's a decent chunk of sugar that's in there, getting down towards being a little bit sweeter. But then it's all about the balance and the perception with the amount of tannin, or probably more in this case, the amount of acidity. If we've got something like Bramley in there, that's a really, really high, acidity cooking apple. Braeburn's is quite low generally, and so the other ones will be quite low too. So this is going to be a sessionable, probably quite easy drinking, and I don't necessarily mean that in a derogatory way, but it's not going to be overlaid with massive kind of complexity, but hopefully it's going to have some balance and some freshness, maybe a little bit like the Scully that we tried a few weeks ago. So let's see what we think.
Well, first off, for Urban Orchard, orchard's the first thing that comes on the nose. It's like orchard floor. It's like windfall apples. It's got that kind of like slight, when you walk through anywhere with apple trees and they're on the floor, because it's that season, you get that kind of slight musty ferments already happening. There's fruit, big skin, grass character in there. It's got a little bit of that kind of green citric note, but it's basically very, it sounds silly, natural smelling. It's very like picking apples off the floor smell.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you've pretty much covered it. Really, there's not much on the nose that you didn't see, and that's what you would expect from a can like this, as you mentioned, the Scully, and something that's presented as a can 4.5%. You want to get apple. You know, you don't want to be fooled into thinking that it's something else.
It plays differently when you're saying you want to get apple. It plays differently to the Scully that we had, because that was like just an eating apple. It was like crunching into one, whereas this is like, it's kind of like, let me take you to where it is. Do you know what I mean? It's like of its place, which is odd for an urban cidery.
Yeah.
But what are we saying on the taste?
It's a bit high in the carbonation for me. Initially anyway, but it tastes lovely again. You apple skin, you know, because there's acidity there that really lifts it, and obviously, as we said, there's no tannins in there, but doesn't have the same fleshiness that we got from the Scully. You know, I think, as you said, that was biting right into an apple. You're not getting that. It's definitely more the orchard, some hay, some grass, you know, little bit of kind of strawberry or something in there as well, maybe. It's kind of sweetness.
There's something there, but I'll say it's a faint taste. It isn't strong and overpowering in any way. And I think if you're going to get into kind of ciders, like maybe one of your first ones, I don't think you could pretty much go wrong with that, because it's got all those characters, but they're gentle. So I think if you have a few of these and then someone gives you something that's a bit more upper level kind of thing in the fermentation or with the apple character, I think after about 10 of these, if someone gave you a gold rush, you wouldn't be shocked. But I would say for me, I would want more from it, but also it ain't for me. It ain't for me. Fucking hell.
But
lads, it ain't for me.
I suppose it's performing its function perfectly.
Exactly.
It's not supposed to be anything other than what it is. Like, you know, a classic you know, English Pilsner, let's say, and depending upon the brand and the scale and everything, you know, it's supposed to be accessible, fresh, potentially smashable, enjoyable, thirst quenching. And I think this cider probably has the opportunity to do all of those things. If you want to have slightly higher levels of depth, complexity, nuance, etc., this is the launch pad to explore those things. I think you nailed it. That actually, you know, once your palate has adjusted to the characters that are in here, it's a good place to start to then go forward on your rest of your cider journey.
Yeah, I think
so. Sorry.
It's just going to say, if you're going into the supermarket, picking a can for a night out or you know, an occasion where you're maybe going to have 5 or 6, instead of picking something a bit more mainstream and a bit more widely available, you will not be disappointed if you pick this. And if anything, it could potentially, I do think it could help to change people's perception.
Yeah. Just like Brewdog's Punk IPA in the supermarkets now, as like a point of my brother goes and picks it up he's down in Devon, but he'll go like Tesco and pick up a 4-pack there and just put them in the fridge as like just good stocking filler kind of beers.
Yep.
And this is currently, I got it as I think you did as well, Grant, as the £5 for 4 cans, which is just fucking ludicrous for one.
Yeah.
But if you're just going for essentially very good no frills, 2 packs of that for a tenner, put that in the freezer, and then put some in the fridge so that you've got one ice cold ready to go, and you're watching the fucking boxing or something, you could plow them back. Yeah. That's just me being honest. If I'm like, where would I be? And it's like, there's a fight on, fucking put a couple tinnies back.
You're saying this is the soundtrack to a fight. Is that what you're saying, Martin?
I'm saying I wouldn't sit there and go like I went down to watch the Fury Wilder fight with my brother, and we stayed up late. And I actually, for the record, I had four tinnies of Guinness, and my brother was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I was like, "Well, I'm not going to sit there with fucking Pilton pom pom and be like, the quintessential." Like, no, I want to drink something and get Larry at the telly. That's what I want. And this is Larry cider.
I think you started trying to give it a compliment.
No, I mean that. I mean that lovingly.
I know what you mean. And
yeah, but that's the thing with it. Like Gabe says, it isn't trying to be anything. There's no dissecting here. I know we are, so we'll just
wrap it up.
Hammer this dead. But yeah, but that is meant for who it's meant for. Just buy a pack and put it in the fridge, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's occasion. It's not. It's we as consumers, we all have different needs on different occasions, and this is the dependable, grab, go to, easy, fresh, enjoyable cider, and that's where we go. Moving things up a level in terms of flavor profile and packaging and everything, we are trying the Henney's dry cider, the Froome Valley. This one has been picked up from Sainsbury's for £1.90 for a 500ml bottle. Let's give it a try. The backstory to this is that this product has been available in the UK marketplace for, I think, about a good 15 years or so. Mike Henney, he used to work for Bulmers back when it was an independent cider maker. He was in the marketing team, and he left the business, and he started making a bit of his own cider and saw the opportunity for exactly what this cider, the niche that it kind of sits in, which is a commercially available in all the big supermarkets in fairly big volumes cider. I say West Country style, Herefordshire, tannic-driven cider that has freshness and appeal. That's certainly always my interpretation of the endeavour. It's been a little while since I've tasted one, so let's have a go.
I've got the craziest tasting notes on the nose, I can tell you that. Fucking hell. What's he saying, Gabe?
Apples.
Can I just say I've packed all my glasses, so I wouldn't have previously said that a glass is a big thing, but see, when I've got a straight tumbler and I'm trying to get my nose in it, and honestly, I'm not really, and I'm pretty, so I'm moving house next week. I'm pretty pissed off that I've done that. So, I'm unfortunately, I'm not pissed off I'm moving, but I've packed all the glasses and I've left the kind of tumblers out. So I'm struggling with the nose a little bit.
You and I famously said it's just all subjective choice, and we like this glass, and
exactly.
you drink out of a boot.
Totally. and now I'm like, shit. It's real. It's not that.
Just if you put your fingers in the glass and just like dab it,
snort it easily,
stick it up your nostrils.
Yeah.
All right.
Mine is. I'm going to be weird here. Mine smells like when you pull jacket potatoes out of the oven after 2 hours. Like it's got a weird potato skin, like hot oil, salty character to it. Which maybe it might not meant to have it. Does anyone else get weird potato skins that are fried?
I'm not sure that I'm getting weird fried potato skins. I think there's a touch of what I think is like if we're being technical and the horse is being imminently prepared, there's a touch of an almost sulfide-y character, or technically accurately a disulfide character. So it's a very, very light, gentle. Normally it'd be like a cooked veg or something like that. So maybe I think that's where the hot potato, as it were coming from. And this is a yeast thing. It's probably down to maybe a slightly hot fermentation or maybe a slightly sort of incomplete fermentation at any time. It's not it's not the overriding factor in there. There is plenty of the dried apple skin. We've got a little bit of sort of dried fruit on there. There are the phenolic characters. We're definitely getting a little bit of the hay barn in there as well. But it's definitely a step up, isn't it, in terms of a bit of boldness on the nose compared to the Hawks. What about on the palate?
I've been shaking to go back to the nose. I've been shaking it in the glass and just smelling intermittently throughout that, and definitely it's now become huge. Everything I said about the Hawks, this is that times 5, where it's like apples in your face, hay, like proper lived in kind of farming, but in a good way. But I just was like, when you're caught off guard and you're like, where do I know that smell from?
Well, it's really good that you can articulate it, because normally the really frustrating thing is if you can smell something, you know what it is, but you can't actually place it in the words, because obviously it's a bit misplaced normally from having
I eat a lot of jacket potatoes.
But,
no,
I wish I could smell that now, because that's a brilliant smell, right? I mean,
yeah. Well,
you
it's
and
not
your
a bad
straight-sided glass heathen.
No.
And as well, a lot of like Gabe said then about the vegetation. I've had a lot of ciders where you're like, oh, it's like cabbagey and stew, like it's got that kind of veg. This doesn't have that. It's like rooty, and I only say cooked because it's like when you open your oven and it's got that weird heat, oily.
Well, like a roast,
note.
Something that's roasted.
Yeah.
But as I know the thing that you're saying, it quite often it's a kind of steamed veg thing where it's like overcooked, and it's wet and nah.
But and again, I don't dislike it. I was just so caught off guard with like notes of a quick, easy dinner. but the taste is like that tannin balance, and you said about the carbonation of the Hawks. Carbonation here is just little effervescent prickles of everything. Like if you were to close your nose, if you don't like that smell, you'd be greeted to like quite a complex cider for $1.90 at Sainsbury's.
It really is. And the astringency is something else. Like my mouth
keeps it bright.
Yeah, I mean my mouth is incredibly dry right now.
There's also a really healthy bitterness in there as well that is quite kind of lingering, and it's described as a dry cider, and you've got two things. You've got the technicality of how much sugar there's in there. There is sugar in there. If this was presented with no sugar added back at all, this would be a fairly boisterous and
bolshy bastard.
But I think that they are legitimized in calling it a dry cider because of the level of tannin that's in there, because of the astringency, the mouth drying sensation, because of the bitterness, that sort of punchiness in there. People will think that they will perceive this as being a dry cider, and so I think that they've legitimately kind of putting that out there, as you say, for being a cider that's available, nationwide. At a, I think, pretty reasonable price for the quality of cider it is, but with that requisite accessibility in terms of the softness and the smoothness and a bit of sweetness in there, it's a good purchase.
If I'm in a supermarket, and a lot of the time with those supermarkets, you're kind of going in there without the expectation, even in the beer terms. So like I know these guys do Northern Monk, so usually I'd pick up that. If I'm being brutally honest, I pick up pretty much Brooklyn Lager in any supermarket that sells it, because I just adore that flavor. And it's just my go-to one. And in fact, Tesco's have got the old branding back in now, the black can. And I know you buy with your eyes, so shit like that. I was so fucking happy when they brought that back instead of the crash shit old branding, like the redo branding. But if this was there in Sainsbury's instead of Northern Monk Heathen, I think I'd go for this now. Like I've not drank this until this episode, and this is, for the price, ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is.
For anybody who wants to have an enjoyable, easy drinking, tannic driven stuff, you know what tannin is, if you want to know what tannin is in a sort of safe place for an accessible price, have a go on this and see where it leads you, especially after 2 or 3 bottles.
There probably isn't another tannic cider available in the Westons.
We actually haven't tried them all. So.
No, but in the supermarkets generally, outside of Strongbow and Westons, Westons is a hard one because it's so widely available that I don't know. It's definitely more mainstream than this.
Yeah, definitely.
And but this to me is more interesting, more complex, and it's a smaller producer, So I think a better way of exploring the sort of the cider that we normally discuss on here.
Also, it's not one that would be readily available in your small cider shop, so you don't have to feel that like kind of prang of guilt of like, fuck, I'm not supporting local if I get it. This is like if you're in the supermarket and you're getting this.
But I suppose it depends on what you mean by small and local. This is a guy in Herefordshire.
No, I mean the purchasing to support community.
Oh,
So
I'm with you.
You wouldn't. Your local bottle shop, unless you're from that area, won't be selling this. My guess is. So it's not that kind. Like I say, it's not that prang of guilt of like, I'm not. I could get that there, but just a great little drink. 6% as well, so it's got enough booze to carry you along your way if you want a 500 ml of something a bit stronger.
Yeah,
bravo. There we go. Give it a try, people. If you're in the UK, the Henney's dry cider, we're a big fan. And so our final cider, it's one that we mentioned before, isn't it?
It is. It is Twisted
Tree.
Twisted Tree sparkling cider bought from Aldi.
5.5.
Bought from Aldi, it's 5.5%. It was bought from Aldi for £2.49, which apparently was on offer.
Mine was $2.75. Yeah, for the record.
I mean, the RRP is $2.99. Yeah,
I'm gonna go get my 25p back.
So, I mean, the fact that it's under £3 and for anyone who hasn't heard us speak about it before, it is in a 750ml bottle. It has a cork and a cage, and looks is presented like a sparkling wine, basically. And starting from that, without even having tasted it, to see something like that for under £3 is kind of insane. I think even for wine, well, certainly for wine, obviously, but yeah. So
it's got some kick on it. I thought I was going to have.
Do I need to get them up?
No, I thought I was going to need to get them up because it proper went boop, and I was looking at the pressure like fuck. But
I'm going to need to get a proper glass for this. This is ridiculous.
I'm quite excited about this. It's rare that I get to try a cider like this for the very, very first time. So this is really, really cool. It is a cork and wire. To be fair, it's not a punted bottle at the bottom, so it's not full champagne method, and that's not saying that it's inferior.
I did think when I was growing up. Sorry, you're always told like how far the indent is, the better the wine. So people look at the bottom like, this one's flat, and I did jokingly pick this up and go, it is a flat bottom. It'd be interesting to see what you guys think about the aroma and taste, because for me there is Nothing.
Oh no, I've got a bit of
tiny rhubarb. That's all I've got.
I've got a bit of rhubarb, absolutely. There's also almost like a touch of the ethyl acetate, of the slightly sort of like oily solventy kind of going on here too. I'm actually finding the aroma quite interesting. Light as it is, it's not huge. Grant obviously can't smell anything because,
No, I'm getting.
This has just got like it's this leaking aroma everywhere other than up his nose.
I finished that Henney's in about 5 minutes. So
yeah, here he is. He's now like wankered, like trying to sniff his tumbler.
Totally, trying to sniff my tumbler.
Top of the episode, well done. My tumbler. Yeah, no, I'm. It's not that I'm disappointed for the price and what you're expecting. What I was genuinely expecting was some the opposite, where it'd be big aroma and 0 on the taste.
Huh.
The carbonation is great. It's solid, and in fact, a lot of ciders that are labeled Pet Nat could do with having some carbonation like this.
Yes, totally. It's really nice and gentle, and lifts.
It keeps on going.
Yeah, lifts the kind of sweet sort of estery notes. There's kind of a bit of pear in there, actually. Weirdly,
yeah.
That I'm getting, and it's extremely pleasant.
I got like a tiny touch of that kind of like pear flesh, a little bit of that as almost like a, when you got like banana skins, that kind of like little tacky thing. But I mean, out of 10, it's like 2, 3. Like I'm stretching, and I don't mind stretching. And what I'll say is, if this is ice cold and you've got that on a hot day, and it's 245, say 250, 275, it don't fucking matter. But if you've got that and it's like that's the option, and you just want something in the neck, I bet that would be gone in a minute. But for me, after the Henneys, I'm not impressed. But yeah, for you, if you, especially if you don't drink tannic cider, if you go from this to Hawks to Henneys, that's probably a fair map journey kind of thing.
I don't really get the 750 presentation for what.
Do you think what they're trying to say is, I guess that from the outside it might look like a lot of the ciders that we actually drink and champion on here, celebratory ciders, or like the size is like a sharing thing. Do you think this is kind of like, it's not trying to say this is a fine cider, it's like, oh well, this is finer than our £1 bottle of cider?
But
sorry, go on.
No, it's just like the point I think with the 750ml format is that it's something that you probably should share because of its flavor profile or its ABV. In that drinking a whole bottle of it to yourself either isn't recommended because of the strength or because it's something that's particularly high in acid or high in tannins or whatever it is. It's quite bold and it's quite rich, and there's a lot to it. This to me feels like you could drink that out of a can or a smaller bottle format, and it could have been presented in a can like Hawks, and we would have said, "Oh, this is smashable," and you could have 5 or 6 of these. That it just feels like they've put that into a 750ml bottle.
Yeah, I'm just really, really intrigued by the idea and the concept of this cider. This is not somebody who's just gone for the lowest common denominator and made an exceedingly kind of mainstream cider in a very mainstream kind of pack and format that is just all about volume. This is endeavoring to do something different and to try and communicate either to a different consumer or to the same cider consumer, and to give them the option to trade up or to try something different or to have a different experience. Whether they've nailed it in terms of the the liquid or whatever is a slightly kind of subjective thing. But I really kind of do applaud them for at least having a crack at them and showing people that cider is, this amazing breadth and diversity of different styles, but also occasions and kind of modes, and getting people to think about it rather than just being that something that you try and consume as quickly and as much as possible, and maybe it being something to savor. So, bravo to that.
But
you bastard.
There is no way that anyone who is making cider and presenting it in a 750ml format of the styles that we would normally drink can get anywhere close to £3 a bottle. So,
also there's about 7 times the amount of quality minimum in any of the ones we like.
But when you're talking
what's in the bottle, let alone the price,
when you're talking about
like
how good it is that it can change people's perception, fine. But then are they going to think, okay, maybe I'll try another 750ml bottle, and then they go to the shop and it's £15, and they're like, well, fucking what? Is it a false sense of what cider is,
I just think that it's endeavoring to tell a slightly different narrative, and of course, it's like trying to get people to take a leap from a. What's the own brand in Aldi? The Taurus. They're trying to take people to get a leap from Taurus to a kind of Stoford Press. Even that's like a bit of a leap, and there'll be a little bit of a leap kind of in the price. I'm not necessarily saying that anybody who tries this cider will necessarily be then willing to try 750ml. I just think that it's an opportunity to present cider in a slightly different light, as it were. And I've forgotten what my name is.
No, I do think it's great. I was just.
Well, it's a good point that you've brought up as well.
Totally.
It's not like you were just being a dick.
No,
you weren't doing a Martin. You were being a Grant.
Oh, that's what it is now. Doing a Martin.
I think what a lot of our listeners can get to, if they've even got to this point, because we can fucking see where you listen to, you cunts. But it's great that we could even talk about essentially as stuff like Hawks and Henneys in the same sentence in a supermarket setting. And if you can get that and you're trying to get your family involved in something like Little Pomona Out of Darkness is a bit too far out, there are definitely accessible stuffs available. But also, please support small, please shop local, as always. But that's it. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining in Supermarket Week.
So here at the Neutral Cider Hotel, it's our final section of the show, and it's our listeners' questions. Martin, what have the great cider public been asking of us this week?
So we're a few weeks behind on the questions. So this one comes from Jacobus on Twitter. He says, "Hey, Neutral Cider Pod, blush face. Loving the podcast. Has made furloughed Mondays a lot easier to get through. A question for the team. What rare cider apple or perry pear would you love to see made into a cider or perry in the future? Are there any that you know that have been grafted or that are waiting to be grown in sufficient quantities that we may see from small producers in the coming years? Feels like a thing that consumers can actively help with their purchases from the likes of Ross on Wye, Little Pomona, Oliver Cider, Caledonian Cider, et al. So, any varieties that we are excited about?"
Well, I mean, there's loads. Of course, this is the thing: is that there's loads of cider apple and perry pear varieties out there. Even if they're not super rare, it's just that the majority of consumers don't necessarily know a lot about them yet because cider makers haven't had the opportunity or haven't put it at the forefront of what they're kind of advocating. we drank the Thorn Perry the other week from Ross on Wye. In the terms, in the world of traditional English perry, it's not a rare variety, but it is a rare variety because it is a rare thing because there are so few of these trees left and so fewer producers making that kind of drink that even something that's been around for a really long time is actually something that's quite kind of rare. Talking about apple varieties like Yarlington Mill or things like that, actually putting it forward as something to be advocated is something that should be massively encouraged and should be undertaken far more than it is currently. Most people just think of cider as being that fermented apple drink. Maybe they've done anything about fermented, just an apple flavored kind of drink. I don't know. There are so many things to be advocating out there that just focusing on. There's I picked a perry pear once called Cowslip, and I'm very fortunate. It's the only pear. It's the only mature tree of that variety in existence, which gives me some modicum of smug satisfaction. The fact that I then sort of butcher it and turn it into something that smells and tastes of sausages is not the point. And it just goes to demonstrate that the rarest thing doesn't necessarily make the most exciting thing. We need to do a considerably greater job of championing the fantastic, amazing range and diversity of stuff that we've already got at our disposal.
Also, it sounds even sillier added on to that because you've basically said there's already great stuff. Also, there's great stuff within that. So like the other day I did a Kingston Black tasting. I had first off I had Borough Hills Kingston Black Single Variety. Then I had Little Pomona's Kingston Black Single Variety. Then I had Ross and Wise Kingston Black Single Variety. And they were all so markedly fucking different and markedly amazing that you can't, it's not like, oh, I've already tried that, or like, oh, I know what that's like. It's like there's a world within the world that you haven't even got the fucking keys to the door to yet. So people's education in cider is so limited, even if you're really into it. Like that's definitely the first Thorn single variety I've had. And it may be the only second perry I've had with that in that I know of. So it's like, even if you're into it, there's just a breadth of language that we even need to learn to get to the point that we can fucking address that. So the answer is none and all.
The classic non-answer.
Well, and also at the moment, using single varieties as a way to sell something isn't bringing anyone new in because they don't know what that is. So you put a whole range of Olivers on a shelf, and there's lots of different. They all have different names, which are, as we know, might be different varieties. Although he's not into single varieties, maybe say Ross and Wye as opposed to Olivers. Someone who's not used to, who doesn't drink a lot of cider, might turn up and be like, "Oh, all these ciders have funny names, don't they?" It's not like they're going to go, "Oh, that's I might try the brown snout today because I haven't tried that yet," or I might.
Do they make this at Yarlington Mill? Is that the place that they make it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, is that a picture of Yarlington Mill on the Ross and Wye label there? Oh, yeah, I like that. Yeah. But I think that varieties is a great way to really educate people on a use of language that we could use in cider that would help cider makers and cider drinkers to categorize things a bit easier and sell things a bit easier and make it more accessible in a way, even though at the moment it seems like crazy because to expect someone to understand or know all these varieties, but it could make it more accessible if we started using that language.
Ultimately, in answer to Jacobus,
Blushface.
As what?
Blushface.
The real answer is Dimmock Red, just plant some Dimmock Red.
Oh, fuck
come
off.
on. Hey,
No.
it was cider apple variety that's been written about in the 17th century as being, brilliant.
Is that when your book came out?
Oh, that's a little harsh. It was only 2 years ago. It's just the number of times that I mentioned Ciderology by Gabe Cook available now. It does feel like it has been out for 350 years. So I jest, of course. It is just an indicator of there are so many fantastic varieties. But there are some apple and pear varieties that have either been sort of largely sort of lost, or it's down to a few remaining trees. Ross and Wye are really big on their flaky bark kind of Perry, and Tom, obviously, Mr. Oliver with the copy Perry pear. These hyper
fucking beautiful
rare varieties, and making kind of
fucking beautiful
exquisite drinks, and that's just something to explore. But everybody should just get on their own journey to explore these varieties and give it a go.
Yeah. Well, now you're back in the room. Gabe, pulled them out from that hypnosis.
Thank God for that.
How many books have we bought?
72, I reckon. That might pay for Christmas.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Have a look at your website stats, Gabe.
Ching 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 ching.
Yeah, your wrist's going to be so sore from signing them all.
Yes.
if people haven't got this far and they don't get bought out of the hypnosis and they're just forever buying the fucking thing.
Ciderology. There we go, everybody. Another fantastic, joyous, excitable, cider-filled episode of the Neutral Cider Hotel. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, follow on Spotify, and listen on your favorite podcast app. We're on Instagram, Neutral Cider Hotel, on Twitter, Neutral Cider Pod, and our website is www.neutralciderhotel.com. And if you've made it this far through the show, thanks very much. We really do appreciate it. And we hope to see you next time around. Come in with all your listeners' questions. We do read every single thing that comes in, all the letters. And you never know, you just might have your question answered. But for now, from myself, Martin and Grant, cheers to you all. Next time round.